Alright, so I'm back working on this 2013 Chevrolet Malibu, and we've got this warning for checking the engine oil level coming on your warning panel there. You'll know it if you see it, so I'm not going to bother showing you that. But anyways, I'd just gotten this engine in, and I knew that the oil level was good. It's I probably don't even have 200 miles on this oil, so it's kind of unfortunate I'm getting this. But we've got probably a 99% chance it's going to be this oil level sensor in here that's bad. But you don't know for sure. There could be some other issue. So there's basically two reasons we want this warning to go away, and we want to check and make sure that there's not a problem with the pickup tube or something going on that could actually be restricting that oil. So we've got it on ramps here. We're going to go ahead and get the oil drained, and we're going to have to at the very least remove the passenger tire and stuff over here to be able to get access to this. So I want to go ahead and show you the sensor, and we're just going to get started. Okay, so this is the oil sensor. This is the GM part. I would probably recommend going with this, just so you don't have any issues, compatibility or whatever. So there's what numbers are there, if you can make any sense of those. But yeah, you can go to your dealer, or I actually ordered this online. So this is what it looks like. We've got this part, and this goes inside of your oil pan, and this actually connects inside the oil pan. You're not getting to this without removing that oil pan. So we're going to go ahead and just get started draining the oil here. Okay, so this actually has the pan here, and I forgot about that. So we probably won't be removing that wheel. Won't need to do that. So it's going to be a little bit easier. We do have the exhaust here. It's got a flex piece here. We may be able to take the exhaust loose from the manifold and get it over out of the way enough without having to remove this as well. So it may make it a lot easier. So I'm just getting the plug on here right now. And we're going to get this oil draining out. And then we'll work on getting this pan off. So like I said, the oil is pretty new, so I'm not going to worry with the oil filter itself, because like I said, there probably ain't even 200 miles on this. But unfortunately, this warning popped up, and it does have to be looked at, inspected to make sure that it is just a sensor problem, and get this replaced so we can shut that warning off. So we're going to go ahead and drain this out. Okay, while that's draining, we're going to get on this exhaust. We got a 13 millimeter here, and then one back on this other side. We're just going to get started. We're going to take these completely out, and hopefully with any luck we'll be able to simply push this over out of the way here. Okay, I'm not on there right. Okay, it wasn't going to work with that extension. Now, if you haven't removed this, you're probably going to have some difficulty, and you may very well strip or break the bolt. Now, what I always tell everybody is just get you you may have to drill it out, but get you a bolt that'll basically match the threads that'll fit in there, and put it back. Any bolt will work. There's nothing special about these. So we'll get on the other side, get that other one. Okay, so we're just back here on this other side. We're going to do the same thing. Take our 13. We've got one more bolt there you've seen on the pan itself. And the biggest trick is going to be, you know, getting it out of the way. Getting it off there is not a problem, but when putting the pan back, you know, there's no gasket. You just have to use RTV and having it out of the way so it's not messing you up putting the pan back on. So, and you can see it's not loose because it's still bolted at the pan up there. Okay, before we take the 13 holding that exhaust, we're just going to go ahead and take all of these 10s loose. We'll just work our way all the way around the perimeter here. And we'll probably need to get a putty knife. This RTV sticks and we don't want to damage the surface, so we're going to get a putty knife and essentially try to cut the RTV loose and kind of break it loose there. You can see we're still dripping at the moment. We're just going to let it drip, and hopefully when we take the pan down we won't have a lot of mess here. So I'm just going to finish taking all those loose there. Okay, so we've just been taking all these out. They're all these little short ones, with the exception of these two that are here and right here. So you'll know when you put those back that those take the long ones. So the only one we got left is over here, this 13. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take the exhaust. So it has a little spacer there that's attached to that bracket. And now it's like completely loose. So we're going to get our hand on it here. We'll see how much slack this is going to give us. This bolt's longer than I ever thought it was. Alright, so there's that bolt. So yeah, this thing moves out of the way a lot, so that completely frees that up. Okay, I've just kind of put a jack stand right here, just kind of holding that up so it's not just hanging down. Alright, well, so we got us a putty knife. Said you don't want to go jamming a screwdriver in there. You'll damage the face of the oil pan. So I may need a little bit stiffer of a putty knife. I'm having trouble getting it started. Okay, so I got a little bit stiffer of a putty knife, and I like to take my rubber mallet and just kind of start tapping it. And usually once you get it started in one area, you're able to kind of work your way around. This is some really good RTV, by the way. It's you don't want to just cram this all the way in there and hit something, so you just kind of work your way around the perimeter. And this is what we're going to do. Said if you just go to using a screwdriver and prying on it, you're going to damage the surface. Of course, the RTV will seal it, but you don't want to give it any chance it has to leak. Okay, so you kind of get the idea. So I've got this kind of broken loose, just basically right here in this area, and we're just going to keep working our way around. It's about all you can do. Now the only problem is you got limited space, so it's kind of tricky when trying to hit this thing and not hit something or hit your hand. So we're just going to keep at it here. Okay, so I've kind of worked all the way down to here, around this corner a little bit. I think I may have it enough to where we can pop it loose. I'm going to carefully, I'm just taking a little trim tool. We're going to see. Still got the putty knife right here. I'm just kind of going under it so I'm not damaging the aluminum. I'm not as worried about the... Okay, so it looks like it's still maybe a little bit stuck. So I think we're going to have to work on around up here and try to get some of this cut loose. It's just too easy to bend these pans, and it's getting there, but we're not quite there yet. So we're going to work on this right here. Okay, so I've managed to get the putty knife over here to kind of break this loose. So I think that we should be able to start popping this down using the method that I was going to. If we can get a hold of it with this, it should start popping loose. We'll get on this other side. Okay, so basically at this point we've got like 3/4 of this broken loose. Pretty much we have this side, and this front. You know, essentially you're just cutting the RTV loose, and you can see it's moving much easier. So now sometimes you have to simply cut it loose on all 4 sides if it still is wanting to be difficult. Sometimes there's alignment pegs and that sort of thing, and they don't want to give. And you can see this is still not coming real easy. Alright, so there we go. And hence the reason to be careful in here is you don't want to go to banging your pickup tube up and everything. Now I'm looking at this pickup tube here. Now this is the first thing that I was concerned about. If this sensor was in fact good, then I would expect this to be clogged or something. And this is actually super duper clean in here. So I don't see any problems in here. It looks really clean. Okay, I want to try to give you a closer look there. Now you can also see over here, that's where that sensor runs to. Now there's a metal clip that holds that, keeps it from pushing in essentially when you plug it in, but you can see where this little wire runs around here. But you know, luckily they made this fairly easy for us to get to. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take these out. I'm probably not going to get all this done before it gets dark, but that's fine. I'll just let it drip and we'll get back on it. Let me find my tin. Alright, so we got our 10mm. You can see now this won't come out of here until we get that metal clip on the back side. I kind of really just want to get this and maybe get the new one in here, and then I'm probably just going to work on cleaning this surface up and prepping it, and along with cleaning the pan and prepping it, and then we'll probably get back on it tomorrow when I got more daylight. But here is our 2 little 10mm bolts right there. And there's that. It just runs. It's got a couple of places that it clips into back in here. Can't hardly see them for that pickup tube, but then it clips to the outside. So anyways, we got that loose. I'm going to go around to the back and see if I can show you this clip here. Okay, maybe you can see this here. let's zoom on up in here. Now this, of course the connector's on the other side. I can't really get to that side good, but I'm just pushing this right here. You can see that. You just squeeze. Get my hand out of the way. You just squeeze that, and that will pop off. No big deal. There's a clip on here that I'm going to have to show you, and it's really kind of difficult at this angle here. Okay, so let me see if I can just cram the camera up in here. You see that clip, that little C clip. Essentially, we're going to push that off of there with a screwdriver or something. This thing will drip for days, so just keep your pan down there. But we're going to push that up. You can see, or push it off. You can see how it just clips around that and holds it. You can use a screwdriver or some spreader pliers or something there, and we'll push it off. Okay, so I guess this is about as good as I'm going to get it. I'm having difficulty getting this set to where I want it, but we're going to go right here and start pushing on that part of the clip, and there it goes right in my pan. Let me fish it out, but we'll go ahead. Essentially this will push through, or it should. It's going to be really stuck. I mean really stuck, but it's going to have to push back through there essentially. And if we break this one, it doesn't matter because it doesn't work anyway. Okay, so because this is stuck, and this is just the clip, just wanted to show you this. Easy to take off. Because this is stuck, I'm going to hit it with my mallet, because this is stuck to the likes of which I've not seen in a while, but it's pretty common with anything with these O-rings. They love to stick. You can see it's moving there now, finally. I think I can just keep tapping it. It'll push its way through here. So I don't care about this one because I'm replacing it. And I've already broke a part of it there. That's alright. So we're gonna let's put that out of the way. It's not hitting that, so we're just gonna keep tapping it here. Alright, so there we go. As you can see, that knocked through there. And now we can just pull it all out. There we have it. There is that. You can see the O-ring, and then here's our other. Yeah, no big deal. So we just got to get the other one back in here now. And okay, before we go to feeding this new one, we're going to wipe this out a little bit here. And I'm just going to, very first thing I'm going to do is I put some of my silicone paste on this O-ring. The very first thing I'm going to feed this up into place. If I want any hopes of ever getting this one back off again, I sure have to make sure. Alright, so that's where it was initially. But we got to push it all the way through. I'm going to have to. Okay, so I got a lot more to push it here, and it's not wanting to budge. So give me just a minute. Okay, as always, a simple process is made hard by things not wanting to cooperate. We're going to have to take this pickup tube off because there is no way in this world that that thing is going to push through easily. So we're going to take this off and then see what we can do about tapping it through. So you'll want to have your pan handy because it'll pour more of this oil out of here as you remove this. And this is going to have an O-ring on it as well. Hopefully I can get to this one up here somehow. Alright, so we got a 1/4 inch extension with my 1/4 inch ratchet here, and I'm just able to get this loose here. Now, swivel would probably be more ideal, but this appears to be getting the job done, and we got it loose. Now, I'm sure I'll have equally as much fun putting this thing back, but you know, that's how it goes. So, with that out of the way, I can actually get over here and maybe push on this. So, I'm going to try to come up here with something that'll fit in there. This ain't going to fit. Okay, so I'm going to essentially try to tap this through here with something plastic so as not to damage it. Okay, so what I wound up going with here, let me readjust the camera. Alright, so I used this, it's a wooden hammer, and I just basically used the end. I found it to work best just lightly tapping this, so you don't want to damage it, but it tapped it on through there. So now we'll get on the back side and get that clip on there. Okay, before we do that, we'll put this back in place. Now you can see these little clips here that go around. This is where this wiring goes into. We're going to run it back around into its little spots. It's got a few clips there that it just sets into. And we're going to get this oriented in the manner that we need. Actually, we need more slack than that. We have to take that back loose. Okay, so let's get this into place and then we'll worry about that wire. Okay, so I've got my little screws here. We're going to orient it this way up into that. Okay, went ahead and quit on it for the night. It's getting too dark. We're back here at it today. I've got my inch-pound torque wrench. I'm just going to go, we're going to go 50 inch-pounds. Always err on the side of caution with little bolts and aluminum. Now you see that the wire is oriented this way, and we're going to tuck it back up here into its little spots. I doubt that it matters a whole lot, but see this spot right here that it clips into, and there's another one back up here that you kind of can't see, and this will drip forever here, but and that's another, I've been letting it drip overnight. It'll be a little bit better because most of it will be dripped out and I'll be able to clean it up. Now you notice that I went ahead and cleaned this surface. You want to be careful with this. This is what I was using, and then I come with this wire brush and got a hold of that. We're going to wipe this up, take some alcohol to it, whatever, make sure this is nice and clean here. And we're fixing to go back to that back side there and get that clip on. Now before I forget, we've got this pickup tube I need to stick back on. Now this didn't have an O-ring, it's just a little like a metal gasket. Usually they have O-rings. So this one up here is the trickiest one to get to. You really probably need to use a swivel on that. I want to get this one up here started first. And we'll get the lower one. And you can see this has been dripping all night, and we still got oil just steadily dripping out of here. Now this is one of the things when you're doing your RTV, the main thing is make sure it's not got oil around the perimeter. We want to get that cleaned off and get the pan up there quickly, and usually you're fine. That RTV will pretty much block it from there, but you don't want to just slap it down into the oil. So we're going to snug this up. I'm probably not going to get my torque wrench in here, but I'm going to go, you know, if you were to torque it, about 50 inch-pounds. Now I said I cleaned this out a little bit, this pickup tube, but there was nothing in there to speak of. And you know, initially when the light come on, like I said, I could have had a problem with this. Now I have seen it where these will get clogged if it's really dirty, and you'll get a low engine oil, you know, or oil pressure issues, really, if that's getting clogged, or if something was clogged, or something not letting something drain. But I'm going to go ahead and snug both of those up now. Okay, so I've got my torque wrench and my extension, and we'll see if I can't get 50 inch-pounds in. Alright, that worked out fine. Okay, now we're going to get our clip on here. Even if you lose this clip, I seriously doubt you would ever be able to push this out. Oh wow, okay. I'm going to have to get something else to push on this clip with. It's not wanting to go into place. Okay, I've kind of got a hammer just pushing it against this oil pan here. I'm going to see if I can't somehow get some leverage here, maybe. Alright, that did the trick. Alright, let's find our connector. Alright, so we're all done with this. Okay, on this part of the pan I took a different approach. You could use a wire brush. I couldn't find mine, so this is like a little Scotch pad, and we just ran it around this until we got all that off. Of course, I cleaned it up with some degreaser a little bit. Now the next thing we're gonna do is take some alcohol, go around this, get our RTV on here. I like using ultra black or ultra gray or just black RTV, whatever I have. And we're gonna alcohol this, and then we'll get our RTV on. We'll alcohol the bottom of the oil pan there just before we put this into place, because the oil will start dripping. You know, if you clean it off, wait about 15 minutes, you're going to have oil dripping right back in it again. So just do it right before you place it on there. Alright, so let's clean this up and let it dry. This is all nice and clean. We'll let that dry just a second. Alright, so I've just got some, oh, can't hang on to it. We got some black RTV, and If you're going to store this stuff, put it in several Ziploc bags. Make sure it's airtight. That's my helpful tip of the day. If you just put this cap on, I can guarantee it's going to be hardened up and useless. So now luckily sometimes I use the cap, sometimes I don't, so I've got some extras. Now this is where you really want some gloves preferably. We're going to cut it probably about right here, so we don't, maybe on this one, so we're able to go around these. Otherwise it just comes out in a big blob. Okay, so let's just cut it right about there. Right, so now we get the fun job, and you don't want to just go to crinkling this, because then it's going to start busting out. Just take your time, get us a bead right down the center, and we'll go around these, or you can just do a bead around and come back and go around that part. You don't have to have a crazy bunch of this on here. So you get the idea. We're just going to work our way around like that. Okay, and there we have it. You can see how we went around, and then we went around each and every hole on here, because I can assure you anywhere that it can leak, it will leak. But if you do it this way, you don't have to worry about any leaks. Okay, so just prior to putting that on, we're going to alcohol around this real good. It's not going to stick if it's got oil. Sure don't want to be redoing it. Like I said, this has been dripping overnight and it's still got oil coming out, so it never stops. Alright, so we're going to carefully get our pan over here. Okay, so you should already have you a couple of your bolts in hand. We're going to carefully try to place this as close as we can. I'll get a bolt started here. I do not want to be smearing this around, but I have done that before as well. Alright, so we'll get one on this back side. You should be able to thread them just by hand there. And again, you don't want to over torque these. I'm not going to go but about 50 inch-pounds on these. You don't want to strip these out. And the other thing about it, even if you've got some stripped out, if you use this RTV, once it's had time to set, the RTV will pretty much just hold the pan. Okay, so we've got a couple of them there. You remember, we've got a couple of these long ones. Now this one goes on the second, I believe. Where is it? The first one. Okay, it was the first one. Well, you'll know when you feed it in there. I think it's the second one from the end. So the really long ones go. Okay, so the second one from the end. And so we're pretty well home free. Now, I always say this anytime that I do one of these, I let it set up for 24 hours, and a lot of people will say, well, I don't do that, I just tighten it down and put oil in it. But this is the way that I do it. You know, if you're in a big hurry, you know, I would probably at least wait a few hours before torquing it. But I've always let mine set up for 24 hours, and then I torque it down. It just I never have any leaks that way, so that's just the way I do it. So we're just going to work all the rest of these little bolts in here, and basically just going to finger snug them down. I might come back and just snug it a little bit more to kind of flatten it out, and then I'm just going to let it set up. Okay, I've got them all in. I'm just going to run these down to where they're up against the pan. I'm not tightening these by no means. I'm just using my little 1/4 inch micro ratchet. We're just going to do this all the way around, and then I'm going to snug it up ever so slightly once I get them all even, just to kind of flatten it out. But I'm not going to be tightening it. I'm just going to flatten the RTV out a little bit. So I'm just going to work my way around here. Okay, so if you can see, we've just, you know, took this and a little micro ratchet and kind of run it up where it's just barely squishing out there. That's perfect. We don't have any gaps, and we've run it up to where it's just barely squishing out. It's nice and even. We're going to leave it like that. Purposely left the exhaust off. I don't need that on there right now, and we'll come back and that'll be the final thing that we put on after we torque these about 50 inch-pounds. Okay, so this has been setting up for 24 hours. We're going to start in the middle here. Probably need to get me a little bit of an extension. We're going to start here in the middle, and we're going to just zigzag from one side to the other. We're going 50 inch-pounds. Let me get me an extension here. Okay, so we'll just come over here to this back side and get about in the middle, and you can see that it's squishing a little bit there, but it's not just squishing it all out. That's why I like to let it set up if you can. Now usually with oil I don't have as much trouble, but I did have an experience with a transmission pan like this, and I did not allow it adequate time to set up, and I just tightened it down, like, you know, after putting it on there, and it did leak. So I was taking it off and redoing it, and thus the reason that I let it set up now. So I'm only going to go 50 inch-pounds. Now you've seen also how hard it was to remove this pan with RTV prior, so if you think it's any danger of coming off here, you would be sadly mistaken. So once you and you can see on this side over here, it's kind of squishing out still a little bit, but even after 24 hours it's not completely dry where it's not got air to it. So I've pretty much worked my way around. I'm going to just go back around and double check, working from the center out. And we're going to go on and torque our oil plug here. It took loose 20 foot-pounds. And on these, you know, you probably could go up to about 96 inch-pounds, but I would not want to exceed that. A lot of times, after you take them loose, there'll be a few of them stripped just because they're so tight initially. So we're going to work on getting this exhaust in place. Okay, so our gasket's on here. We're going to go ahead and just set this back up into place. Now we do need to get some anti-seize on these. Just going to kind of put that into place real quick, maybe. Okay, so we'll get this one on the back side here, and we've got it doused down real good. Just going to kind of loosely get these started because I got to get the bolt for the bracket over there, and I want to make sure that there's not going to be any alignment issues. Alright, so we'll get this one in place. Okay, so we'll just leave those loose for a moment. You know, like with anything, you want to get all your bolts in before you tighten them down. Okay, now we're going to get this 13mm into alignment here. And I've got a little bit of RTV in that hole, so it may be a little bit tricky to get it started here, but we're going to torque this in these ones up here to about 25 foot-pounds. Okay, so now we're going to get our exhaust up here. So I put anti-seize on her every time I take them in or out. Alright, so we're all finished up here. We're ready to go ahead and get oil back in it. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get oil back in here. Now you want to definitely check this after you have filled it up closely. It could be that you have to add a little bit more oil than you normally would changing the oil because it was dripping and draining a lot more out than you normally would. So I'm just going to go ahead and add this 5 quarts and see about where we're at. It's probably going to be just about right. And we're going to crank it up and check it for leaks, and most importantly, take it for a test drive. And sometimes it took driving it around for a little bit to get that warning to come up, so I'm going to have to drive it around for a minute and see what it's going to do. A lot of work, so I do hope that warning goes away. Could be that I have to go in and delete some code, but I don't think so. Okay, so we got it cranked up here. So far, so good. Don't see any leaks. So we'll drive this around for a bit and make sure that warning light is going to stay off. Now it goes without saying, when you're working on this car, make sure your rear wheels are chalked. I don't know if I covered that, but safety first. Alright, so I've been driving this around for a little bit, and so far that warning light is not coming on. I really like this, the engine of this car. It's running there, it's very quiet, you can barely hear this thing. But it appears that that's fixed the issue. That was just it was a faulty sensor, oil level sensor. The part wasn't very expensive, I think about $20 or $30. for the OEM part, and then just the oil. But it's a pretty easy job. You might want to plan on a couple days, depending on how long you want to let your RTV set up and everything, but a pretty simple job nonetheless. So anyways, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to leave a comment, please do so. And as always, I invite you to subscribe, and thanks for watching.